Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Victoria, and today we are doing 23 books that I have to read in 2023. So I made a actual thing in my reading journal of these 23 books. So this is going to be like a serious challenge for me to read all of these books. They're ones, some of them are new, some of them are ones that I've wanted to read for ages and have been on my physical TBR or on my audio TBR that I've owned for ages and just had said I wanted to get to for a really long time, and this is the year that I want to get to them. So I was a little bit more strategic this year trying to choose these books because last year I just randomly picked books. I was like, hey, that one sounds kind of good, and I didn't read them. So one of my big goals for 2023 is choosing books more strategically, ones that I actually think that I'm going to enjoy, and ones that I've wanted to read for a really long time and just have struggled with choosing, picking up. So this is my way of saying, hey, I need to pick up these books. So anyway, let's get into the books. So the first one is one that I've had on my TBR for ages. It's a historical romance that a lot of people are in love with, and it is Again the Magic by Lisa Kleypas. I have read a ton of Lisa Kleypas and I really, really love her, but this is the one that everyone says is absolutely amazing, 5 stars, you're gonna love it. And I know that Samantha from Books with Samantha, this is one of her favorite books ever, and she talks about it a lot, and I very, very, very much want to read this book, and 2023 is going to be the year that I finally do. I have this step back version and it's just really pretty. But this is a historical, and honestly I don't really know what it's about. I don't know the tropes or anything in it other than that it's historical, it's Lisa Kleypas. I tend to like Lisa Kleypas's historicals. I'm a big fan, so I think that's going to be great. I'm going to enjoy it. It's going to be a trend with these 23 books that I don't know really what they're about. I'll know a general gist, but some of them are just ones that I know that I think I'm going to enjoy or that I've heard about a lot. So this is the first one. I'm determined to read this in 2023. So the next one is There Are No Saints by Sophie Lark. This is a psychopath or serial killer romance, and that's pretty much all I know about this. I really like Sophie Lark's writing. I've read her whole Brutal Birth Rate series, and I've also read Ivan and Part of Snow from her Underworld series, and I'm a big fan of her writing. I like the way that her books are written. So this is the only non-mafia book that she has other than Anastasia, which is her new fantasy one. But I'm intrigued to read this. I have a thing about serial killers. I like the way that they are in books, and I think that it's really interesting. I think that serial killers are interesting in general. That's such a not good thing to say, but I find them fascinating, and I want to know why they are the way they are. My favorite TV show is freaking Criminal Minds, but this book has a serial killer romance, and they have a romance. It also takes place in San Francisco, which is such a random reason to pick up a book, but I was born in San Francisco. I grew up there, so that's something that drew me to this book also. But I find it fascinating. I think it's going to be interesting, and I own a physical copy of it because I found a used copy of it. So like I said, I want to prioritize reading books off of my physical TBR that I haven't read yet because it makes me anxious to have books on my shelves that I haven't read yet. So this is one that I'm going to try and read. The next one that I have is another one that I've said for a long time that I will be reading it, and that is Still by Kennedy Ryan. I have read Flow and Grip, and I loved them. I gave them 5 stars, but you guys know my thing with Kennedy Ryan, and this is just a way to say, hey, 2023 is the year that you need to pick up Still, Victoria, because I have had Grip read for 6 months and I haven't picked this book up yet. And I know that this is a lot of people's favorite Kennedy Ryan's. I love Kennedy Ryan. I love her writing. When I read her books, they're stunning. I have a very strong reaction to her writing, but her books are all very emotional, and you guys know I'm afraid of my emotions. So this one is one that I think I'm gonna love. I mean, the one where they're struggling with their relationship is Grip. So I feel in this one, they should be mostly happy. I mean, that's what I think in my back of my head. I'm ideally that's what this is, but I know it's still going to be really emotional. I hear that the wedding scene in this is really amazing, so I'm gonna read it. With this book, it puts Still and Hookshot on my 2023 books that I'm going to be reading. So those are people's like 2 favorite Kennedy Ryans. So it should be a good year for Kennedy Ryan. The next one that I have is Hands Down by Mariana Zapata. This is the Mariana Zapata book that I haven't read yet, other than her newest book, Gracie Met the Grump. And this one is a second chance romance, and it's a football romance, and I just never picked it up because it was a second chance romance. But in 2022, and the second half of 2022, I got so much more into second chance romance. It was like not a thing that I would ever read before that, but this past like the last 6 months of 2022, I read a ton of second chance romances, and I started to like enjoy them. They're still not my favorite trope, and I don't think that it's going to be my favorite trope, but it's not a trope that I like completely disregard now. It's one that if I see it in there, I'm not just going to be like, oh, I don't want to read this book. It's going to be one that I'm like, oh yeah, I'll try that if I'm in the right mood for it. And so Hands Down is a second chance romance. It's sports romance. It's Mariana Zapata, and I have had the audio for a while, and I want to finally get to it in 2023. Next one is another one that I have a physical copy of, and that is Sweet Dandelion by Macaulay Smeltzer. I have yet to read a Macaulay Smeltzer book. I know that she has become loved in 2022. I first heard McKay from Oh Hey It's McKay talk about this book, and she loved it. I think it was like one of her favorites of the year in 2021 maybe, and I was intrigued when she was first talking about it. I believe it deals with a school shooting, so like trigger warnings for that. That is something that I am going to have to be prepared for going into it, because school shootings are a very sensitive subject, especially for me, because I went to middle school and high school in the town right near where the Sandy Hook school shooting was. So that could be very impactful for me if I am not in like a good headspace or something. So it's something that I'm gonna have to keep watch of. But it's a taboo romance between a heroine and her guidance counselor. And I think it's gonna be interesting. I think it's gonna be emotional. Macaulay Smeltzer has so many books that all sound really interesting, so I want to try her. I think that her writing is going to be interesting, and I actually met her at a Polycon this year, so I'm intrigued. I'm going to read it, and I hope that I love it. The next one that I have is one that I've actually, if you go back and look at some of my like earliest videos, please don't do that by the way, but if you did, if you've been here since the beginning, this is a book I actually said that I wasn't ever going to read, and that is Corrupt by Penelope Douglas. I said that I wasn't going to ever read this book, but that was at a point where I did not read anything forbidden or taboo. I was very like early on in my reading. I was very like, the like thought of Birthday Girl scandalized me at that point in my reading, and so I've since read many a taboo book, and something like that does not faze me as much anymore. And so because of that, and because of the amount of people who have talked to about this series, who've told me about this series, who have scenes from this series that they've been like, oh my gosh, you know that scene in this book? And I'm like, no, I've never read that. That I need to read Corrupt. I need to read this series, the Devil's Night series. So if you'd be interested in watching me do a reading vlog of like the whole Devil's Night series, let me know. Maybe I'll do that, but I'm gonna read Corrupt. The next one that I have is Run Posey Run by Kate C. Wells. This is a book that I honestly have no idea what it's about. No fucking clue what it's about, but I've heard people talk about it. I heard Jen from the Book Refuge and also Bree from In Love and Words both talk about this, and I love The Tyrant Alpha's Rejected Mate by Kate C. Wells, and I really want to read more from her because I really liked her writing, and so this one intrigues me. The cover's interesting. I think it might have to do with like a serial killer or psychopath or something along those lines, but that is where I'm at, so that's all I like really know about it. But I own the audiobook. I bought it when it was on sale one day, and so I think that it'll be fun to go into it kind of blind and not know what's going on. So that's one, I'm gonna read that one. The next one that I have is one that I put on, I think, 3 TBRs in 2022 that I never read, and that is Dark Notes. by Pam Godwin. I read Sea of Ruin by Pam Godwin, and I loved it. I loved it. And I've read, I think, one other book by her. Lessons in Sin. I read Lessons in Sin by Pam Godwin also, and I just really love her writing. I think that it is really amazing, and she has this very, very beautiful way of writing and very captivating way of writing, and I want to read more from her. And Dark Notes is a student-teacher, taboo, age gap romance that has just intrigued me, and I put it on like 3 TBRs in 2022, and 2023 is going to be the year that I actually read it. I think that it's going to be great, and I think it'll be fun. The next one that I have is one that is going to make many friends very happy, and that is Heartless by Elsie Silver. Heartless is a book that is probably going to be on so many people's top books of 2022, but I unfortunately was not able to read it in 2022 because it did not have an audiobook, but it is getting an audiobook in the beginning of 2023, and so I am going to read it. I think that I'm going to love it. I think the only cowboy romances that I've ever read have been westerns, like historical westerns, and I didn't enjoy them. So I'm intrigued to read a cowboy romance. I mean, I love TV shows that have like take places on ranches and stuff like that. Like the and I think that it'll be fun. I think it'll be cool. I really like The Longest Ride movie. Like that one is like such a fun one to watch. And so I think that it'll be fun. And I know that it's single dad, I think, and it's like a nanny romance, and those are 2 tropes that I absolutely love. So I think I'm gonna love it. I'm definitely gonna read it early on in 2023, like right after the audiobook comes out. So I think it'll be great. The next one that I have is Enthralled by Gianna Darling. This is the first book in the what's that series called? I think it's a duet. The Enslaved Duet by Gianna Darling. This one is a series or a duet where the heroine, I believe, gets sold at an auction, and the hero is the dude that buys her. All I know is it's the sister of Elena from the Anti-Heroes in Love duet, and I am intrigued to read all of Gianna Darling's books except for The Affair. I'm not reading that series. I just know that I'm not going to like it, but I want to read every other Gianna Darling book, and Enthralled is one that I'm definitely intrigued by, and I think that like idea of like him being the guy who bought her and him being like bad boy and them falling in love sounds like something I would enjoy, and I really love Gianna Darling's writing, so I want to read more from her, and I'm excited. Okay, number 11, we have Funny Feelings by Tara DeWitt. This one is fully on here because of Caitlin from The Love Librarian. She has talked about this book so much, and it's another one that I think is going to end up on a lot of friends' top books of the year that I was not able to get to because it didn't have an audiobook. So as soon as the audiobook comes out, I'm going to be reading this. But Caitlin, this one's for you. She absolutely adores this book. I don't really know what it's about. I think that they're comedians. I think it's friends to lovers, which is not my favorite thing, but it's something that I don't mind reading. And when it's a really good friends to lovers, I really enjoy it. So based off of the way that Caitlin talks about this book, I'm sure that it's going to be good. We have similar reading tastes, so I think that's going to go well. Number 12, I have Further to Fall by Catherine Cowles. Catherine Cowles is an author who I started reading in 2022 because of Jess from Peace Love Books, and I read her entire Sutter Lake series and her entire Tattered and Torn series in 2022, and I want to read this book. This is her like standalone romance. I want to read like her entire backlist, and this is one that's just like an entire standalone, and I don't hear it talked about a lot. I think it might have even been her like first book that she ever wrote, and that sounds fun. I love seeing how an author has improved since their first book, and seeing like what is the book that like they first published and how their writing styles and things have changed since then. So I think it'll be fun to go back and read this book, and it is a standalone, which is not like the only standalone that Catherine Cowles has, so I think it'll be fun. Number 13 is Loved by a Warrior by Donna Fletcher. I read the first book in this series. I gotta look up what the title is. Hang on. This is The Warrior King Book 2, and I read Bound to a Warrior I think I read it last year. I read it in 2021 and I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. They're like chained together, and I am definitely gonna have to reread that book before going into this one because I remember there being like a plot that like continues on. But it follows brothers, and this is book 2, and it's one of the brothers books, and I loved book 1 so much, and I've always like remembered it and thought about it and never continued on with the series, but never read more by Donna Fletcher. So I definitely want to continue and read book 2 and read the brothers books and like get the full story and everything. So I had to put another historical on here also because I really do love historicals, but I tend to like back ones and not like newer ones, and I need to like have a reason to pick them up because I'm like rare when I get into a historical romance mood. My historical romance shelves are so full that I like panic and I'm like, I don't know what to read because there's too many options. So having one like this like on my list and stuff is a good way for me to actually like know what I want to read when I get into a historical romance mood. Then the next one that I have is another one I have a physical copy of, and another one that was on multiple TBRs in 2022, and that is The Pool Boy by Nikki Sloan. This is one that I'm going to probably wait until like it's hot out or like summertime, or at least like getting into summer, so like early end of spring kind of situation, because it just gives me that vibe. I'm not usually like a seasonal reader, but this one I just feel like it has to be like by a pool reading kind of thing. But this is The Pool Boy by Nikki Sloan. It's an older woman, younger man romance, which I really, really love and don't read a whole ton of. It's the ones that I read, I absolutely love. So I really want to read this one. I know so many people absolutely love it. It's signed because I met Nikki Sloan this year, and I have put it on a billion TBRs and just haven't picked it up yet, so this is getting read in 2023. The next one that I have, number 15, is The Soul Eater by Lily Mayne, I believe is the author of this one, and this is a series that I've wanted to read for ages. I can't remember who I first heard talk about this series, but it was like 2 years ago, and it is a monster romance MM series, and it's finally getting audiobooks. I'm so excited. It was just announced recently that it's getting audiobook for Soul Eater, and I am so excited. I'm so excited to finally be able to read this series. I have seen all of the art. I follow Lily Mayne on Instagram and on Twitter because she has art for the books, and I've never even read the books, but I love seeing the art for it. It's just like Not Safe for Work monster art, and oh my god, they're amazing. I'm so excited to read this series. So many of my friends who read MM love this series, so I'm really excited. The next one that I have is one that's been on my TBR for a million years, and that's Transcendence by Shay Savage. We're throwing it back. This one is a wild man romance, or like a, it's time travel, and they don't speak the same language. And I think he was like, they go back to like caveman times, and he's like a, caveman type person, and she's like travels back in time to his time. And they have to like try and communicate, and they end up falling in love. And I love romances like that where there's like a verbal difficulty. So like when in alien romances, when they first get there and they have to like try and communicate between each other and they like don't speak the same language, or in Love in the Wild by Emma Castle. That's one of my favorite romances, and that's a Tarzan retelling. He like is a very wild man hero, but he's such a sweetheart also, and I hear that that's what this one is. And I believe Shay Savage is going to a book signing that I'm going to in 2023, so I think that this would be fun to read before I go see her. The next one that I have is another physical copy one, and that is Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. One of my favorite books from 2020, was it from 2020? Yeah, I think it was 2020, was The House in the Cerulean Sea. I love The House in the Cerulean Sea. It's one of my favorites. And this one was the book that came out after that. It's like not associated, but it's the same sort of vibe. And I haven't picked it up because it does deal with death, and it is, one of the characters dies and he has to cross over but he goes to this like in-between sense. And I believe there is a small romance in it, an MM romance. That's how it was in The House in the Cerulean Sea. It is not a romance book, but it does have like a romance in it. I don't even really know what type of book I would, like what the genre of this book would be. I guess it's like sort of fantasy, but like not really. It has like fantastical elements, but I loved The House in the Cerulean Sea, and I'm really hoping that I'll love this one. The next one that I have is What Was Meant to Be by QB Tyler. This one is the newest QB Tyler as of right now, and it is a age gap, dad's best friend's second chance romance. And I know that a lot of my friends have been really loving it. I just wanted to put a QB Tyler on here because I really do want to continue reading QB Tyler in 2023. She has really amazing books, and I like the way her spice is amazing. And just like when I really feel like I'm in the mood for something that's like really nice and spicy, I really like to go to QB Tyler. Her books are spicy, but they also have good romances in them, and I think that that's something that I really like about her. And I just wanted to have one on here so that I could say, hey, I just want to remind myself to continue picking up QB Tyler's books. Then number 19, we're almost done, is Next of Kin by Hannah Bonham Young. This is another Caitlin recommendation. Caitlin from The Love Librarian has talked about this book a whole bunch. Honestly, I couldn't tell you what the tropes in it are. I just know that she absolutely loves it and gushes about how much she loves it. Don't remember what the tropes are in it, but Caitlin loves it. I love Caitlin, and I think that I'll like it. Number 20 is The Silent Waters by Brittany C. Cherry. So I have read one Brittany C. Cherry book, or I guess I've DNF'd one Brittany C. Cherry book, and that is the only one that I've read. And I know that so many of my friends really love Brittany C. Cherry, but she just like, her books, I know are very emotional. They're like the same thing, like they're angsty, they're that kind of vibe. And I don't love that kind of thing all the time, and so I've just like not picked up more, especially since I picked up Eleanor and Gray and then DNF'd it. And so I want to read The Silent Waters. This is one that I've said for ages is the Brittany C. Cherry that I think that I'll like, and I am finally going to push myself to read this book. I know a lot of my friends really loved this one. This is from the series, the Elements series. I actually think it's like book 3 or 4, like it's not book 1 in the series. But I think I'll like it, and I think the hero is mute if I remember correctly, and that sounds good. Okay, next one that I have is another physical copy, and that's Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. I have had multiple friends tell me that I can't call myself a Sarah J. Maas fan if I haven't read Throne of Glass, and I understand. I get it. I actually have read Throne of Glass. So this is a little bit of cheating because I did read Throne of Glass, but I read it when like only 3 of the books were out. It was like I read it in like middle school or early high school, and I don't remember it at all. And I only read book 1. I never continued. So I want to reread book 1 and read the whole series, but I'm only putting book 1 on my freaking list because that's insane. But I'm putting book 1 on my list to say, hey, actually go back and read this book. I think that I'll love it. I really do love Sarah J. Maas's writing. I really love ACOTAR. I love Crescent City. And I know that so many people think this series is their favorite of Sarah J. Maas's series. So I want to read it. And this is my brother's collector's edition copy that I stole, but I am finally putting it on my list to say, hey, actually read this. The next one that I have is Still Beading by Jennifer Hartman. This is another one that is going to end up on many people's top books of 2022. And I put this on my TBR in January when Jess from Peace Love Books first read it and talked about it. And I have picked this book up probably 6 times since then. And I got to I think I got to chapter like 4, like right when they first get kidnapped, like right after they first get kidnapped is as far as I've gotten each time that I try and read this. I just am not in the right emotional state to read this book. This deals with very strong trigger warnings, like on-page events, and I struggled to get through at the literal first scene after they're kidnapped. Like I had a very difficult time with it, and because of that, I need to be in the correct mental state in order to read this, in order to be mentally okay with it. And I haven't been for 2022. And I'm hoping that 2023 will be better, but this is not a book that I feel that I can push myself to read when I'm not in the right mental state for it. And so because of that, I am not going to force myself to read this by the end of 2022. That was my plan originally, to be like, I need to read that book before the end of 2022. I need to read that book before the end of 2022. It's not going to happen, and I think it's better overall for my mental sanity to wait and read this when I am okay in 2023. At some point in 2023, that's why this one is going on there. I think I will like it if I read it in the correct mood, but I just am not there yet, and I don't want to force myself. Then the last book, number 23, is Entreat Me by Grace Draven. This one is one that I know that Avery from Ava's Romance Books loves. She loves Grace Draven, and the only Grace Draven book that I've read, I didn't love, but I loved the romance in it. I read Radiance by Grace Draven. That's the only one that I've read, and I found it boring, but the romance in it, 5 stars. The actual overall book, not 5 stars, but the romance in that book was 5 stars. It just needed more of it. Like, I needed to focus on the romance, and I felt like there were too many other things happening, and it was slightly boring because there were too many things just like other sides. But the romance in that book was absolute 5 stars, and I have heard that Entreat Me is a very, very good one for romance. It's a Beauty and the Beast retelling, I believe, and I want to give Grace Draven another try because I did love the romance in Radiance. So Grace Draven is going to be at Book Bonanza, I believe, and I want to read this before I see her at Book Bonanza. So that is my plan. That is the last one that I have. I think I'll love it. I love Beauty and the Beast. I love Beauty and the Beast retellings. So I think it's going to be one that has the potential to be like an absolute favorite. So it's going on this list. I'm going to read it in 2023, and I think it's going to go well. But that is the last one that I had. That was 23 books to read in 2023. I hope that you enjoyed this. Let me know down in the comments below if you've read any of these books, if you're excited to see me read them. Again, let me know if you want to see a reading vlog of reading any of these books. Corrupt by Penelope Douglas. If you want me to read the Devil's Night series in a reading vlog, let me know. Or a psychopath or serial killer reading vlog, because there are a couple of those on this list. But that is going to be it for this video. So again, I hope that you enjoyed that and that it was interesting. I'm really excited to read all of these books, and I think it's going to be a good reading year, or I'm hoping anyway. But that's going to be it. So please like this video if you liked it, subscribe so you can see more content from me, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.